Chief.
We're rolling.
First thing I want to do is capture you calling my father and saying hello to him on speakerphone.
Oh, come on now.
You don't want to do
Is
that.
that necessary?
Yes, I'm trying to get a more personal attachment to the documentary. Yes, sir. That was the idea that me and my father had came up with.
You and your father came
Yes,
up with
just to say, just to give him the greetings. And he's on standby.
No, I ain't doing that. I'm gonna ask a question. Yeah, go ahead and call. Rob! How you doing? You ain't got that rolling, have you? Assalamu alaikum.
What's up?
How you doing, Rob?
Hey, Kim. Oh, man, it's so good to hear your voice. I'm the real man.
It's good to hear yours too. I'm here with your son, and we're about to do this interview on our relationship.
Brother, actually, I have one thing I'm thankful for in life is I will live the life with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and live a life with you. You are my two favorite people that I ever met in my whole life. And I thank Allah for the life that He has given me with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and you.
Well, I thank Allah as well, Brother Rahman, for you. I was preparing to come down for this interview, and I thought about your age and my age. And the month that you were born is October, and that's the month that my brother was born, and you and my brother are the same age. So my brother, So my brother left me when he was in his 60s, but I still got my brother with me. We're going down the line together. I want the people to know that we're in our 80s, and we'll be doing this again in our 90s, and
That's
maybe
right.
when we're 120, we'll come back and lay something on the folks.
But Brother, when you turned 70, they had a little gathering before you read the salon, and I met you and said, welcome to the club. You said, Brother Rockwell, we're going to be doing this when we 90.
Well, we got a little ways to go. So,
I left them saying, Brother Wilson, I said, you trying to get me to let me mad. I got to get on the phone, try to make the man.
no, set your sight on 120, and then when we get to 120, we'll check ourselves out. Maybe we could go to 150.
All right, praise be to Allah, the Lord of the world.
May Allah bless you and bless your family, and I'll be talking with you, inshallah, at Savior's Day.
Yes, sir. I'm getting ready to give my prayers to the mom today, so.
Yes, sir.
I'm really jacked up now. They really gonna get a good cook by today.
Well, they always get a good goodbye if you doing it. May Allah bless you, Rock.
Thank you, brother. Be talking to you later.
All right.
Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
All right, Chief.
Yes, sir.
When did you meet my father, Captain Sam, and what were your first impressions?
You know, Brother Wali, I met Mom first because I was the minister in Boston, and your mother was studying for her master's degree at Boston University. And she would come up to the restaurant sometime, and we would have coffee together. In fact, God, I think I knew Mom maybe a year or two before I met Dad.
Wow.
And I met him at Mosque number 2 in Chicago when I came and went to FOI, he was a lieutenant then, and we were doing karate exercises. Your big father and this little skinny brother doing karate exercise. He was so kind. He wouldn't hurt me or nothing. Excuse me.
Okay. How was he as a captain? How did you see him as a captain? And what do you think the obstacles were as far as him transitioning into becoming a minister?
He was a man that came through the ranks. He was first a lieutenant, and I believe even before that he might have been a squad leader. And then he became a captain. And that's the road that I traveled. I was a squad leader, then a captain, and then I became a minister. The transition is easy for a man that's a soldier for God. And then in order to teach men, you had to know the teachings. You had to be able to inspire the men to get out and do the work of the resurrection of our people. So he was an inspirer of men when I first met him. When he became a captain, he was a bigger inspirer of men. And then when he became a minister, he rocked the South like no minister that ever was in Atlanta before him. And I want to encourage the minister that's there now, because nobody has equaled the record of Abdul Rahman Muhammad.
All right. Coming up in the Nation of Islam, you've been around my father and the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. How did you see him being a help to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and any things that you saw that people might not know in the forefront?
Well, first, he's a very dedicated person, very committed to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made him his minister, well, you know, he was a captain in Florida under Minister Lucius B.R. and then Minister Troy B.R. And you know the history of his relationship with the great Muhammad Ali. So, you know, he just has been on the case ever since he became a follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So as a minister, and he was the best that the South ever had. He was the most progressive. He did open up the most businesses, was over all the mosques in the South and kept opening up more of them. The school, the University of Islam. In Brother Rahman, the messenger had a great soldier. And what I loved about him, many of the ministers, you know, were kind of envious of myself because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in their eyes, seemed to favor me. I didn't see it that way, but some of them did. And, you know, infighting, it's always bad in every organization or church or mosque or synagogue. And wherever we are, we like to pull each other down. That was not Rahman. Rahman loved his brother, and when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made me his national representative and put me on the radio to represent his teachings for 6 years, your father was one of my biggest supporters. And he would even calm down some of the others who came up in the ranks with us too, but they had a little something for Farrakhan. But Rahman would always be there to support his brother and to keep some of this envy and enmity in check.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up, because that leads me into the next question that I wanted to ask you. When the Nation of Islam had a fall, and you took the work of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and began to rebuild the Nation of Islam, how were you able to get Rahman back when so many others resisted to return to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
Well, I knew that I would have to approach some of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's ministers that were in the class together with me, and that was my desire to rebuild his work. So I came to Atlanta and I met your father in I think it's the Peachtree Hotel.
Yeah.
And we had coffee together, and I talked to him about my desire to rebuild the nation. At first, he didn't make a commitment, though I knew he loved the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and wanted to see his work rebuilt, and I'm sure deep down he wanted to help. But when somebody comes out of the blue and asks you, your father was a tremendous pool player.
That's right.
And when you know how to play pool and you win most of the time, you know what you're doing.
That's right.
So when a man come and ask him, to come and help build the nation, a pool job, he got to look the man over and see if the man is really sincere, because if I throw down with you, I'm gonna throw down all the way.
That's right.
So he took his time. But after a while, he said, and you can ask him, he said he had heard the word of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told him, go and help Farrakhan. Well, he's a student and follower of the messenger. If he heard that, he jumped straight up on the messenger's word and came, and we hooked up, and we've been together ever since.
Oh, that's beautiful. I believe it was 1985, Madison Square Garden, the power speech. As you come to the stage, and this is me being a young boy and really learning the new direction or the rebuilding of the Nation of Islam, and I'm watching the speech, and I hear a voice saying, Farrakhan, Farrakhan, all praise is due to Allah for Farrakhan. And I see my father and notice that I'd already noticed the voice, and I see his face, and somehow he found a way to get right to that mic so the whole auditorium could hear him. How does that make you feel throughout these years for him to root you on, to praise your name, as well as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad? How does it make you feel when you're on the rostrum and you hear your brother?
Well, your father didn't need a microphone.
That's right.
When The Rock said Farrakhan, his voice, the penetrating sharpness of that voice, it carried into the microphone.
Yes,
and
sir.
of course, to hear my brother cheering me on, it's like, God, I'll put it like this, Brother Wali. It's like when he was in the corner of the great Muhammad Ali. When Ali is making his moves, your father was in the corner with Boudini and others cheering Ali on. And when he'd come back to the corner, you'd see Captain Sam jump in the ring with his towel and say things to Ali to encourage him. Everybody that's doing something needs encouragement.
Yes, sir.
And so all he did was transfer the encouragement from a physical heavyweight champion to a young man who's trying to be a spiritual heavyweight champion. And he's been in my corner all the time with a towel. In other words, if you sweat, I'll wipe your sweat. If you need this, I'm there with you for you. And together we will build the nation of Islam under the guidance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
How did you use him as you guys were rebuilding the nation? You know, I've seen at times he was the minister of Atlanta, and then he was the Southern Regional Minister. Then I believe he became an elder minister advisor. How did you see fit to utilize my father, and how much of a help has he been during that whole time?
You know, we're students in a class. There are many things that your father heard from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that I might not have heard, because he would come up from the south and go to the farm and bring watermelons and whatnot up. You know the Honorable Elijah Muhammad loved watermelons. And he did so many great things to help the messenger in buying cattle and cows and bulls and searching out land. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would teach him how to recognize the value of land and whatnot. So your father, in his unique relationship with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, was a disciple that had a perspective on the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that I might not have had. So having Rahman in my corner as a brother in struggle, we compare notes. We talk to each other. He would give me his thoughts, his ideas. He became a member of a council. And I would not do things on my own without conferring with those who knew the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, loved the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and wanted to see his work successful. So I remember when the great Jesse Jackson asked me to support him in his 1984 bid to be the nominee of the Democratic Party for the presidency of the United States. I didn't tell him yes. He asked me, I said, well, I'll get back to you. And when I got back to him, I got back to your father. I got back to Brother Lucius B.R. I got back to Mother Tainetta, Brother Jabril, Brother Abdul B.R., all the followers of Elijah Muhammad who knew his teachings. So when I told them what Reverend Jackson desired, I never told them what I wanted to do. I wanted to hear what they thought about his request. And I have to tell you, after the dialogue went down, it was a unanimous decision that we should help Reverend Jackson. And your father played a major part in that decision.
Okay. On a more personal note, is there any memory or anything funny or anything happened in your interactions? I remember he told me one thing about you guys being in Orlando, Florida, sleeping in these small beds, and he was snoring and keeping everybody up.
Oh, man. Well, I don't, that's personal, but I would never sleep in the same room with your father again. Once was enough, because I couldn't sleep in the bed. I took the pillow and went in the bathroom and sat on the toilet and put the pillow up against the wall, and I still could hear the rock. So just like you could hear his voice over the crowd,
Yes, sir.
when he's cheering you on,
Yes, sir.
you could hear his snore over the crowd when he's snoring you on.
Yes.
So I'll never forget those wonderful times with Rahman.
If you can sum up in one word what Minister Rahman, my father, is, what would that word be? You can take your time.
No, you know, the best word, you know, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad named him. He didn't name him Abdul Rahman for nothing. Rahman is the beneficent. And if you look, I think it's the 55th surah or chapter of the Quran about the beneficent God and what a person of beneficence does to live up to that attribute. So how could I say something better about my brother than what our Father said of him when he named him Abdul, the slave servant of the beneficent God. And ever since I've known him, we don't find nothing but good work that he has done to benefit others.
Any last words, anything you want to say to Rockman besides what you may have told him on the phone?
Well, I always would like to say how much I thank Allah for his life. I was blessed to meet his father, and I was blessed to meet Big Mama, his mother. And I loved the father, and I loved the mother. I always like to meet the producer of a great one, because his greatness as a follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is not in a vacuum. His mother is a marvelous woman, a dignified woman. His father was a straight up tall soldier. And when I met him in Georgia, I looked at him, tall, and he wasn't a fat man. He was tall and thin, but strong. And in 1960, when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came down to Georgia, your dad came out to hear him now. And I saw him and met him then, and I met him a few other times. But of course, he passed. But in the last few years of his mother's life, I was blessed to get to know her very, very close. And this love that Rahman and I have shared over the years transcended he and I. It went to his family. It went to his parents. It went to the parents of his wife, Zarifa. And so we have that bond. And I pray that Almighty God, Allah, will grant him longer life, that he may see the victory of the apostle of Allah that he has worked so hard to achieve. And no matter how hard we work, the job is so much bigger than he and I, and you and I, and we. But the Quran says it. When, not if, when Allah's help and victory comes, and you see men entering the religion of Allah in companies, celebrate his praise and ask his protection. So no matter how hard we have worked, it never has been hard enough to affect the total resurrection of our people. But when Allah's help, and that help is nigh, comes, I want Rock and I, inshallah, to be together to celebrate the victory of Islam in America. its establishment in America among those who were the naysayers, the people who tried to put out the light of Allah with their mouths and with their pens. But Allah said he will perfect his light, though all the polytheists may be adverse. I pray that he and I will be present to see the victory for which we have worked the better part of our lives.
Well, since you've been a great one that he walked with, I want to thank you once again for your time. I love you, brother.
I love you more.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.